to my talk, Digging Deep with WPQuery. My name is Josh Smith. I work at a company called Dice.com. That's the job board company that tech workers go to find jobs. Tech workers, people looking for to fill positions in tech jobs. So project managers, developers, all different skill levels, all different kind of positions in the tech world. We have a tremendous offering in just the application, the database that we have. But there's other things that tech workers need, like news, tips and tricks, how to master the interview, what languages are hot right now, what are interviewers looking for, why can't people filling positions find these positions, things like that. And a lot of that happens in WordPress at our company, at least. So I work almost exclusively in WordPress with the cross-publishing, publishing regular blog roles, regular news roles, but also sending that data over to iOS devices, over to Android devices, and other WordPress websites, other Java-based websites, not just WordPress. So a lot of that is centered around the WP REST API, getting that to work, and making the computers do all the work instead of us going in, logging into the back end, and copy and paste and things like that. So a lot of that work happens for a larger audience. So not only am I working with the cross-publishing things, but these problems need to be solved at scale. It's not uncommon for 500,000 people to open up an email at one time. So these kind of problems are kind of magnified with scale, where we could have, a less popular website could get away with being a little bit sloppier. It's not the case when you're dealing with things with hundreds of thousands of people. So every good journey, every good story starts with a problem. This is mine. A typical day for me is where somebody will come to me and ask me to build a page or build a site or build something that isn't necessarily in WordPress, but they need it in WordPress for a specific application. Recently I got a page, a request to essentially recreate this page. This is like a lo-fi mock-up of it, but create a page that is not in WordPress in form and function, and allow WordPress users or publishing content people to start producing content and sending it all over the web. This is a basic example of it. This page will have some basic navigation with the global UK, US stuff, some analysis articles, and then some cards that will change. And all this content is dynamic. All of it's going to be stored in the database at one point. It's pretty kind of a typical request that I'll see.
Is it going to be stored as WordPress content or as separate tables, custom tables?
Nope, not custom tables, just regular tables. So that's kind of the initial request. So I need to plan this stuff out. Software engineering, right? You got to break this stuff down. So this is what we have. The simple part, we have two major elements, two major parts of this page. We'll start with these cards. These are repeating cards that will go down, say, a top 30 list. These cards will hold the top 30 companies in a particular region. When you're looking at this, the layout's kind of simple, and those cards will not change very frequently. Annually, these are annual lists. So when you're looking at this as somebody who's into WordPress and developing things for WordPress, it's not going to change very frequently. So you're thinking, well, it's not necessarily a custom post type, but it is dynamic content, so we may need to change it at one time. Say we load in Google as the top company and we need to change this logo. So content producers and editors, they need to be able to change that. So I'm thinking advanced custom fields for these cards. If you're not familiar with advanced custom fields, it has a really powerful interface where you can just repeat content. So I can make this in the admin area, add these fields, and then repeat them. Really powerful feature. That's the easy part. The next part is the more difficult part, and kind of what we're here to talk about is the loop. So we have at the top of this page, well, almost at the top, above the list, we're going to have 3 analysis articles. These articles are going to relate directly to the region. Let's see if my laser works. The region that the user is clicked on. So if they're in global, they're going to get a list of the top 30 global companies, and then 3 analysis articles to offer more to the customer. Likewise, UK, the list changes, the analysis articles change. US, same thing. Eventually, there's going to be almost 2 dozen of these regions to choose from, and we'll get into that. But this content is different than the normal news roll, blog roll content that gets displayed on, say, the homepage or something like that. This is analysis content. This is not news content. So these 2 things, they don't necessarily go together. In fact, I don't want them to mix at all. I don't want news articles showing up here, and I don't want these analysis articles to show up on the homepage. So right now you should start thinking about custom post types, because I want custom post types because these are distinct sets of content, and I don't want them mixing around with other sets of content, but I still want to take advantage of looping through them, do a loop on them. This content's going to be updated more frequently, not as frequently as like the daily news roll, which is about 3 articles a day, but maybe weekly or something like that. And then it's going to be enough that somebody's not going to want to go do that manually. That's going to be kind of a drain on resources, but this is exactly custom post type territory right here. Yeah.
I'm sorry. But when would a user be accessing this page, and what conditions?
A lot of it's marketing's driving visitors from social or something like that into a page. You mean a visitor?
Yeah.
So a visitor, they're on the job hunt and they're in a specific region, and they want to find out what are the best companies right now for in the U.S. or something like that.
So it's not a response to an email? Or
Not necessarily. I mean, you could definitely link to all that stuff,
right,
and drive people in there. A lot of our content is driven from other areas. I don't know exactly what, ad campaigns, a lot of it. So
gotcha.
Come on, don't you die on me.
It wants to.
I know. Okay, here we go. So how it will work. This is a little bit interesting, and I hope you guys don't chew my head off. So nothing's been crazy so far, right? Custom post types, no big deal. But the issue is all of this content is going to be loaded on the page all at one time. So displaying, and these analysis articles, they're going to be displayed by their category. So the trick is displaying on one page load, getting all of the custom post types of a certain category, the top 3 of those, and then load it in all at one page. And then hiding everything that we don't need with JavaScript and CSS. So that's the tricky part, is loading in posts of a category, the top 3, and then all at once. That's always kind of hard to do, and it's not something that you can necessarily do right out of the box with WordPress. So this is kind of it'll have an effect when users load this page. Yeah, we're just hiding stuff with CSS and JavaScript, but this is a business decision, and we'll go over this later, why this is the appropriate choice, because we don't have something like React built in. We want all that content so search engines can go through it, and we want it to be indexed. Normally you might be thinking something like, we'll load the content in dynamically, but I don't know if bringing it in with the REST API or something like that will allow search engines to index it, and therefore it's like, okay, it's a fancy page, but it's not indexed, and that just basically is no good to us at that point. So we want that content on that page, and have that single page app feel, just hide and show things. So that's the page and how it'll work. The WPQuery part, why we're all here. Okay, basically, if you're not familiar, the WPQuery is a class in WordPress, and it's one of the ways that we get data from the database. Those posts that you're talking about, we tell WordPress, hey, go get these posts. I need the top 10 posts, or the latest 10 posts or something, and many ways, or not many, but a few ways, and WPQuery is the primary one, especially it's the preferred one for when you're using a loop. So you go get the database, hey, database, run these SQL queries across the database, and give us back the post. The post takes it to WordPress, and WordPress does its magic. So it's one way to access it. There are other ways, and if you ever look up, like, which way is the better way, you'll probably see this image on Stack Overflow. Other ways, query posts, GetPost, which we'll see later, they use WPQuery to go get it. The difference between GetPost and WPQuery is what they return back. WPQuery is going to return us an object of data, whereas GetPost is going to give us an array of data. So we want to use these, what it gives us back, in different ways. But there's going to be a test later on this, so you got to memorize it. I don't know. It's really interesting to see these things visually and like step by step. So this thing will pop up a lot. There's a couple of these explanations out there on Stack Overflow, and this is a popular. I think it's on the Codex too. I know it's on the Codex. So really, really interesting. Okay. How looping through and loading all of these will work. This is where I read straight from my notes, because I'll mess it up if I try to do it off the cuff. So when this page loads, the entire page, I want to get the last 3 posts of a specific post type when each post is of the category of a specific region without duplicating any posts. Okay, you can't do that out of the box. Out of the WordPress box, you cannot do that. So I'll read it again. I want to get the last 3 posts of a specific post type when each post is of the category of a specific region without duplicating any of the posts. So I said, I'm going to make this plugin, I'm going to make custom post types. Those custom post types get custom taxonomies. I don't want taxonomies mixing and mashing with each other either. And I'm going to pull them all in with this guy. All right, so this is a trial and error phase. I've never done this before. So I started exploring things, kind of intuition. What do I already know? What do I not know yet? I know that I'm already using advanced custom fields. So it is possible that I could go in, take a link to that article, make some fields, have the content editors cut and paste an image that I'll display, cut and paste links where the link should be going. But if we're on the cadence that I think we're going to be on the cadence of where we're producing a lot of content, not the maximum content, but a lot, more than once a month, probably 4 times a month, that can be a lot of manual labor for people. And when you start doing things manually, you're also introducing human error into these things, so that can be a problem. So advanced custom fields, doable, but that's not the option that I want right now. Also looking around, who's familiar with the 10-up engineering best practices? Good. That's an excellent resource to go to when you run into these kinds of problems. If you don't have a CSS philosophy, and I don't know anybody that does, but they do, so use theirs. They're really smart people. Just do what they do, right? We've all heard that, I don't know, an idiom. Is it an idiom? The phrase where you stand on the shoulders of giants. They've already solved these problems, and they've already kind of gone down these areas. So I'm going to do what they do. I'm going to take what they have to suggest on board.
The recommended number of posts per page?
No, they're not recommending this. So one of the ways that you can do this, you can pull in all the posts all at once and then start filtering through them with PHP. But it even says on their engineering best practice, if you pull in all those posts and you have 100,000 posts, you're going to cream your servers. There's no way that it can stand up to that. So you don't want to do that, even though it will work, and it will work at the beginning. So be careful. Just because you have only 10 posts from which to choose from, it doesn't mean in a year you're not going to have 1,000. In 5 years, you're going to have 10,000. So you're going to see some serious breakdowns there just because it works now. So don't do that. Are you familiar with that thing? Okay.
I was
So
wondering if you're into the CSS
no.
or best practices from Tom.
No, these are arguments for the WPQuery. That's what I'm presenting to you. So, PostPerPage is an argument that you would hand WPQuery and say, go get all the posts. The negative one is all the posts. One of their suggestions on the best practices, instead of getting all of them, you get a manageable number. So, manageable number is hard to define. It's arbitrary. So maybe it's 500, but what if you have 500 posts? So 500 is not the answer. What if you have 1,000,000 posts? 500 is also not the answer. So it's arbitrary, and you kind of have to use your best judgment, and that number will probably change as you add more content to your website. So if you're going to go to the database and get the last 500 posts, 500 may not be the number that you want. For instance, and here's why, it might not be your manageable number. Say you are tasked with displaying the top 3 posts on the home page of category A and category B, and you'll get the last 500 posts in the database, and you're going to filter through this. So what if your content editors have produced 499, the last 499 posts they've created are all of category A? So you can display the last 3 category A's on the home page, no problem, because you have 499 from which to choose. But when you go to display category B, you only have 1 to choose. So what's the answer? Bump up 500 to 1,000? I don't know. So that doesn't seem right to me. I think there's other ways to do this. And another way is to handwrite them. You could handwrite, copy and paste a bunch of WP queries all over the place, just have a string of 100 lines of WP query. That is possible. You can do that. All of these are possible. You can get the data out in the way that you want it, but it might not be the most efficient. It might not be cost effective. There's a lot of human error in here, so there's got to be a better way. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting problem, so we have to break it down into things that we know. I know a couple things at this point. I know that categories are in use. I made a custom taxonomy. I know I've assigned these posts, these analysis articles, to a category. I know that it's a custom post type. I know that I can get the last 3 posts of that custom post type of that category. No problem. And I also know that we have a couple other things besides WPQuery and stuff that comes out of WordPress, out of the box. We have some friends like PHP is still available to us. Just because it's not specifically built with WordPress, or just because WordPress hasn't given us something, doesn't mean we can't use PHP to look through these things. We also have JavaScript. We have WPQuery has family members like GetPost and GetTerms that we can use to help us filter through this and display the correct data out. Okay, so my solution is basically I'm going to go get all the categories in use. I know that we have categories. I know we have a custom post type now. I'm going to go get all those categories. Then I'm going to write a new WP query for each category to pull in the last 3 posts of that category. Easy, right? So first thing we do is go get those categories and we put them into an array. And with this array, we're going to find out 2 things about these categories. We're going to find out how many unique categories we have, and then what the slug of that category. When I build this array, I'm going to show you actual code examples. But we'll know 2 things. The unique categories, we want unique, right? We're not repeating things. And then the slug. This array will come into, we'll use it in a second. Second, some posts may have more than one category attached to it. It is possible that post 5 is of the location global and of the location US. So we want to build another array, a do not duplicate array. So when we've already displayed one of these posts with a WP query on the front end, we don't want to display it again, so we're going to block any new ones from coming in. So that second category will not be added to our front end. Okay, pseudocode time. So we have the array of unique categories. So for each of those unique categories, we're going to run a new WP query with a taxonomy query with the category that is the unique category. We're going to add that post ID to the do not duplicate array. We're not going to load that post in anymore. Then we're going to reset the post data and do it again. For how many times? We're going to do it for the number of times that's in our categories array, our unique categories array. All right, so simple in theory, right? But they're not so simple to execute all the time. So I'm going to walk through some code examples, some snippets from the inside out and out of order so you can see this stuff, kind of where it goes. So please do not fail me now, because this is the good part. All right, so this is my function, and this is going to get all the unique categories. So I'm going to go look at the custom post type that I'm using. I call it ideal employer. Oops, where'd it go? Oh, sorry. I'm going to go get the the terms in this custom taxonomy. If it doesn't have a post attached to it, if there's a term that exists but no post is using that term, it's going to ignore it. And then I'm going to put it into that post variable on line 20. So that's my array of unique, or not yet, they're not unique yet. And then for each one of these, each one of those posts in this, or each one of these categories, I'm going to use a for each loop, right? This is where PHP comes in. Each one of those, I'm going to loop through, and if it already exists in that do not duplicate, or in this array, I'm going to not add it. It's so hard to explain that. So I'm going to get, basically what this is going to return me in terms is an array of unique slugs. Set up my do not duplicate array. Now we're going to loop through. This is where we're going to write a new WP query for each term in that unique category array. Kind of basic arguments, and then here's our taxonomy query. So I'm going to loop through, write a new WP query with these arguments. I'm going to query the taxonomy employer category. I'm using the slug. Remember, the slug's in that array of unique categories, and then I'm querying with the term, which is this guy right here.
The terms variable is returning as an array, right? From up above?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've looped through, have access to the global post variable because I need to add the post ID that I'm dealing with in this while loop. I need to add that to do not duplicate. Do not duplicate will come back up here and it'll land right here. So these arguments, the first iteration, there's nothing in this array, in this do not duplicate. The next iteration is going to have the post I just dealt with. The post I just dealt with. So it's going to build up, whatever, 10 posts or whatever. So that's how we prevent it from returning us stuff that we've already displayed out there. a post, an article has 2 categories. That's how we prevent it from coming back and displaying it again. Yeah.
Did you try anything like a RaceSlice, or any of those where you're trimming like the PHP trim function, so you're only basically sawing off the first term, or anything? Did you trial and error doing something like that?
No. For what?
Well, like when a post is in multiple categories, you can use some of the PHP functions to only return the first one.
No, I didn't.
I have no idea if it would work. It's just something I was
Yeah.
just thinking about looking at.
Because if you trim it, what if it has 17 categories?
Yeah.
And the one you want is in the, I don't know. Just
Yeah.
seems like
Well, it only works. You can only pull the first or the last is on most of those. Just wondering if you tried any of that.
no,
method.
like an array. If it is in the array, then I'll pull it out. Echo some HTML just so it looks decent. Echo the post ID, echo a space, concatenate with this period, the post ID. This is for us. This is the proof of concept right here. Echo out some obvious separation between things, and then reset the post data, and then go get your footer. Okay, so that's the proof of concept stuff. Let's look what it looks like. Oops, that's right here.
Oh, there we go.
All right, so here are my posts, just dummy posts written. Here are my terms. These are the categories. I've outputted them, remembering like some H3s or H2s or something. And then Asia, first one is Asia. Here's that post ID 198. So Asia only has 1 post for which to output. France has 3, global has 3, but UK has more than 3, so the latest ones come out, so 432 in descending order, likewise for the US. So that's proof of concept, so it is working, but that's not very cool, and that's not what I was asked to build. So the demo site that I'm building, remember the mock-up. This is some advanced custom field, the cards that are produced in advanced custom field can do this a lot easier and faster than I can do it. It's these analysis articles over here, still displaying dummy content. When I change it, hide and show with CSS. But these are all on the same page all at once, which is the tricky part. So the images show up and displaying. Now, content authors, they don't have to go through and cut and paste things and add things manually. They let the computer do it, which is exactly what the computer should be doing. Human beings are creative. We're not good at tedium like that. That's why we have calculators. Okay, back to the slides. Potential problems. I think potential problems, when I was experimenting with this stuff, it was really difficult to, you could think, theoretically there could be an infinite number of categories too, also. So you'd have, well, not infinite. Say if you had 5,000 categories, then you would have 5,000 WP queries. That's unlikely. I know basically what the upper bounds for the number of categories that we're going to have. It's about 24. That's acceptable. I've used WPQuery. My biggest thing is I don't want to produce slow queries. If I can avoid that, then that's good. It means slow website. We can cache all we want, but nonetheless, we still don't want to just leverage caching exclusively. We still want to have efficient websites. So just because you have caching does not mean that you should not still produce these things efficiently. All right, whatever. Summary. It's kind of like that engineering triangle, right? You can have it cheap, fast, or on time, and pick 2. It's the same thing. Software engineering is often a compromise between these things. Like what the customer wants may not even be possible at all. from your system of choice or whatever. So it's a compromise. There's also the compromise of performance. So what people are asking for, lots of features and performance. So they can have all this stuff on one page, but now your performance is going to take a hit because you're loading in lots of huge images or lots of huge sliders or lots of JavaScript all over the place. So it's a compromise, and I don't know if it's fair. A couple years ago or a couple months, yeah, it must have been years ago, somebody said they posted something on Twitter like the fastest website ever, and it was nothing but just plain text. There was like no JavaScript or anything in. Like, okay, wow, that's super fast, but it's also uncompelling, and nobody wants to do anything with that website except for talk about it at meetups. There's nothing to it. You're not going to make money off of it, that's for sure, which is what we're doing. And then when you have these big problems, break them down into things that you know. Not just smaller problems, but also things that you know. Things that you know are true and that will not change. And then those are my parting words. I hope that's good. You guys have any questions for me about this? HDMI cables? So that's it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Did you look at like just doing a direct MySQL query at all at any point just to see if you could pluck them directly into bypass WPQuery? Because sometimes WPQuery won't give you everything.
Right. I did, and I was basically like kind of scared of it, and I didn't want.
Yeah, I'm terrible at it too. I would have done the same thing, tried the same thing you did.
Yeah. So that was like my very, very, very last option was to try to do that, and I'm glad I didn't have to get in there and do it because I would probably still be at home working on it right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another option. There's WPQuery, GetPost, direct queries. So, but it's an option. Anybody else?
You're talking about writing the queries as fast as possible. How are you testing that, or is it just a matter of like, I know this is working because it makes sense like logically?
Yeah. So I did try. Remember those things with the circle and the red? I did try some of those before, like handwriting them. And I have Query Monitor running, and I just noticed, like, man, okay, that had 121 queries, and there's barely anything on. This one, I think there's like 68 queries run on that page. And then that question also pops up, like, how many is too many?
Yeah.
What is a slow query? There's no, like, definitive answer. Like, Query Monitor will kind of turn red or orange when it's slow, but then I need these features. I need this stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, that's a compromise. I'll run 200 queries if it gives me what I need. Then cache it.
Does everybody know what Query Monitor is? What he's talking about?
Plugin?
So it's a plugin.
Yeah.
The best one if you're ever building stuff like this, it's called just enter developer in the plugin search. You'll install developer and activate it, and there's like 20 different modules. Query Monitor, debug bar, there's all these available ones that you should put in whenever you're developing locally, and it'll have those tools all built in. Every project I do, I start with that developer plugin, and then add that one and a handful of other ones, and it'll start clocking all of those query times. And then in an IDE like PHP Storm, it'll dump those arrays for you. You can view them, and it makes it huge. Those two things alone will skyrocket the development time of figuring all this stuff out.
Gotcha. I've used it before, and there was so much output, I got a little scared of it. I'll have to give it another shot.
Yeah.
I don't like
great talk to see the debugging through PHP Storm is something I haven't gotten that deep into. I'd like to be able to step through the PHP code.
You haven't gotten it installed yet, like Xdebug or something like that?
I haven't. No.
Oh yeah, do it, dude. Or do it. It's like you can see that, like that graphic that with the WPQuery, and then you just like see it. You see stop here, and now what's in my array.
Yeah, it's just the PHP that it's running remote is. I do iOS mostly.
Oh.
I'm used to code development tools, but I haven't figured out PHP and WordPress yet.
Oh. Consider that an insult.
So you were using jQuery tabs to hide the things for the category that wasn't showing. So that was what you were talking about. We were saying you can hide stuff with JavaScript, right?
Yeah, so the jQuery, I would add some CSS and hide it and take off and add classes.
But everything's sitting there at once. And then you're going to, so you eventually you're going to have like 24 categories. So that's going to be like 3 times 24 loading at once. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Which
what-
is the hit.
Why was it the right decision
For
to load all of them at the same time?
because I don't have Facebook installed on that theme, and I'm not going to install it either. I could, I guess, pull it in with dynamically, pull in that content dynamically, with like REST API or something like
So
that.
but you could, each of those tabs could be a link to a separate page that
Right.
only loads the 3.
Right, but the requirements were that it's all on one single page.
They wanted it to be single app field.
Yeah, and then just that one page has a ton of SEOGs.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Has it deployed to,
Pardon?
is it live yet or is it?
No, it's almost there. Maybe a couple weeks. They're not waiting on me. They're waiting on building this content. You don't want to like launch it with like
With one.
a post thing for global.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's content developing, like marketing. This is like one piece in the marketing.
So the theme is done by another group and all that stuff?
No, the theme was built in house before my time. I've only been there about a year,
Okay.
but it's like, what's it cost to fold in React? Is it worth it? I don't think it is. I'd rather start with it.
There's nothing wrong with PHP. It's great.
I know, I think it's fine. But there's other things out there that, if that's the look we want, but I don't know, I'm big into like, I don't want 2 looks on one website. So, is it a single page app? Well, let's just get a whole new website then. That's what I think. Anyway. Good?
It was awesome. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.